Shoot. Okay, welcome everybody. Tonight I have Christine Stenquist, cannabis advocate out of Utah, and we're going to talk to you guys about advocating, specifically calling your local representatives and senators to support House Bill 209, and give you some encouragement on lines of discussion. So I will introduce Christine if you want to pop in here.
Hello, everybody. My name is Christine Stenquist. I'm an advocate from Utah. I worked on pushing policy in my home state, and I'm a brain tumor patient. And a quick little 2-minute story about me. In 1996, I was diagnosed with a brain tumor. I was given about a month to get my affairs in order. I had a 50% chance of survival. While I was in surgery, they hit a blood vessel and I hemorrhaged. 60% of the tumor was left, and I had slipped into a coma, woke up 4 days later, had stroked. So I had to learn how to talk and walk and swallow and do all kinds of things. I spent the next 16 years bedridden and housebound. Back in 2011, I had hit a pain wall. At the time, I wasn't walking. I was bedridden for about 6 weeks, struggling with food and eating. And I wanted to try cannabis. And I reached out to my father, who's a narcotics officer, and asked him his advice. He encouraged me to try it and see if it was something that would help mitigate my symptoms. And it did, in fact, do that. I spent the next several months regaining my strength. I learned to drive again. And about 8 months later, I was back on Capitol Hill with my cane still, learning how to push policy in my own state. I did that on the Hill for several years in a row with no real substantive policy to be pushed. We did pass the first CBD law in the country back in 2014. And after that, we just kind of were roadblocked by our own legislators. And so in 2017, we filed our ballot initiative. And in 2018, our ballot initiative passed. We have now 14 dispensaries and 8 grows in Utah. Our program is still struggling a little bit with some clunky little policies that our legislators put in place, but we are up and functioning and running. In 2019, after our program had gone through its licensing and stuff, I had a friend, a colleague of mine who lives part-time here in Wyoming, tell me that he's working with some candidates who had patients who were reaching out to them and asking them their position on medical cannabis. He asked me to come and do a speaking tour in 2019. I reached out to Bennett and to several other cannabis advocacy groups in your state of Wyoming to let them know that I was coming and wanted to connect with everybody so that we could see if we can kind of pull the troops together and create a groundswell again for Wyoming to see if we could get some policy passed. Over the course of the past 2 years, 2.5 years, Bennett and I have maintained our advocacy friendship. We have connected with Madonna Long, who is a strong voice for patient advocates, and she has started Wyoming Patients Coalition. Is that right, Bennett?
That's
She
great.
started Wyoming Patients Coalition to kind of be an umbrella for all patients from all walks of life and those who are supportive of medical cannabis. If you're a patient, caregiver, or supporter, please reach out to Madonna Long or Bennett with Wyoming NORML, because they're the ones that are the boots on the ground. I am just an ally to help guide them as they try to push more policy in the state.
And those websites are wyomingpatients.com and wyomingnormal.org.
Perfect. So just to catch the public up on what's gone on, Bennett, well, when I went on my speaking tour, I also sat down with, at the time, was just Representative Jared Olson. He was running for re-election. He wasn't the majority whip yet in the House. I met with, at the time, Representative is it Salazar, Tim Salazar, and he was running for office to get into the Senate. And I met with several other legislators, and it sounded like that there was an appetite for medical cannabis in the state. We have a legislator by the name of Mark Baker, who is also a patient and who has been advocating pretty hard on this issue in your state for several years now, right, Bennett?
Yes,
Representative
definitely.
Mark Baker has been a
Yep.
strong vocal advocate. Another former representative that's attached to NORML as well, who's been trying very hard to help raise NORML's image, because
Yes,
I think
definitely.
outside of the state it has a bad image, but your NORML, Wyoming NORML in the state has gone through a big transformation in their leadership, and they're trying to really get the message out. And former Representative Frank Leda, is that correct, Leda?
Lada.
Lada, my apologies, Frank. He has been a big voice in this effort too. He's an MS patient and has been pretty vocal with his former colleagues on the Hill to push some policy that makes sense for patients and supporters of cannabis in Wyoming. And so my effort here is just to be a guide, to be an ally, to help Bennett and help Madonna and help the Wyomingites figure out how we can get some substantive policy passed in your state, because it's about time. You guys have tried really, really hard for several years in a row to no avail. I keep hearing how you guys keep getting shut down. And so I'm hoping that we can bring in some allies that can just help get this taken care of.
Yeah,
And that's
exactly. And part
absolutely
of that's going to be, convincing our local legislators what we need to do. And so that's what we're here tonight for. We need to get everybody that can, everybody that has a phone and a voice and a reason to call, whether you're a patient or you know a patient or you just care about patients, please call your local legislators. Their number can be found at wyoledge.com. And there's a search engine. If you don't even know which legislator is yours, you can put in your address and find out exactly who represents you. You can click on a button and find their phone number, and you need to call them. I started doing this yesterday, and I can tell you, I spoke with a guy who he was not in favor. He said there was nothing that I could do or say that was going to change him, but I presented a few facts. I just spoke, friendly and calmly.
Yes.
We had a good conversation, and when it was over, he said, "Thank you for how you approached this. I appreciate it. I don't agree with your position, and you can't do anything to change me, but thank you for calling. Thank you for the conversation. I really appreciate how you came at me on this." So if you approach this from a, hey, you're my neighbor, because they represent you. You live in a district that is fairly small for the size of Wyoming. And these folks have been elected to represent you. And so you can call them and say, please represent me on this issue. And you need to help them to get to know you. And you're not going to be able to spend a whole lot of time on the phone. They're getting a lot of calls. They're very, very busy. So you need to keep it very short. Introduce yourself, tell them where you live so that they know that you are a constituent.
Yep.
And then give them just a brief little bio, why you care, and ask them to support House Bill 209, because we're there's so many of us that are desperate for this, and we need the support. And in order to get that, we have to convince them that we are here and that we are worth supporting. And that's all of you. And it's happening. You wouldn't believe how many of these guys are saying, I am blown away by the number of folks that are contacting me on this issue. And they're saying it's important to me. And just like one of the legislators at the House committee yesterday said, I'm not for this and I'm not going to vote for this, but I am allowing this to pass through committee because I have been hammered by so many people in my district saying, please support this, and giving him, compelling testimony as to why it matters to them. And that's what they need. And they need more of it. But they also need to only hear good facts. Don't find random facts off some website and try to feed that to them as information, because that hurts the whole fight. So use a good source, and you can find on wyomingnormal.org or on National NORML's website, they have fact sheets familiarize yourself with these fact sheets. And if you want to have them available when you call your legislators, it's great because you can pull it up and there's a list of the bullet points. And if there's a question, they say, hey, you know, I'm concerned about the youth. You can click that button right there and say, but youth use has gone down in states that have passed it according to the government research data at this link. You know, if they have concern with intoxicated driving, there's a link for that. So if you're familiar with that and you can navigate that, that can be a great resource. Now, it doesn't mean you're going to be able to use it. Like I say, you might have a minute or 2 minutes on the phone with these folks. So you want to have just a couple sentences ready for them as to why they should care and why it matters to you. But be prepared, because if they want to have a conversation, I had another conversation with a guy who was in a bar and he didn't understand the hypocrisy, but he was unwilling to support our bill, unwilling. There was nothing I could do to change him because, you know, it's the devil's lettuce. But we had a decent conversation as he sat in that bar. And so I was able to give him some information, like the 23 million plus we're spending a year to put people like me in jail. And it didn't change his mind, but it put that data in his head. And so if you have that opportunity and you have that data at your fingertips, you can utilize it. So I would suggest that you get used to that as well.
Absolutely.
Do you have anything to add, Christine?
Absolutely. Sure. And that's great information you provided. When calling your legislators, like you were expressing, you want to have your elevator pitch down to about a minute to a minute and a half. Your legislators, if they already know how they feel about this position, it doesn't do you any justice to be belligerent. Serves you better to just establish a respectable relationship, because you don't know when you may actually have to come back to this legislator, and it serves you better to have an ongoing rapport with them so that you can get your points across. Um, as people start to reach out to their legislators, and I just wanted to tell people tonight, hopefully individuals will come across this video. We do not have a session happening tomorrow because of the snow that's impacted Cheyenne tonight. We are down, we are shut down, which means just like me, stranded in this hotel, so our other legislators are stranded in hotels here in Cheyenne with me. So tomorrow, Monday, would be a fantastic day for everybody who supports cannabis in Wyoming to be calling their legislators.
Amen.
I strongly encourage it. And keep calling every day until that bill hits the floor. We know it's coming this week. We just don't know which day. The soonest it would happen would be Tuesday. But it could be as late as the end of the week. It just depends on how quickly they want to be done with it.
Yeah.
I am hearing that several legislators are wanting to attach amendments to the current bill. That's a positive sign. I want people to know that when you have legislators who are actively wanting to amend a bill, that means that they're trying to figure out how to make it work. They just need a little bit more support from their constituents that this is the right path to go. I am always at Wyoming NORML's disposal. Madonna has access to me too if you're going through her and the Wyoming Patient Coalition. If you bump into a legislator that needs a little more information or that might be a little receptive, by all means, please reach out to Wyoming NORML. You can also find me on social media on Facebook if you want to reach out to me in a private message, and let Bennett and I know which legislators are receptive, who needs more information. We have physicians, we have lawyers, we have people who are part of law enforcement. We can connect them with people to talk to get a little more information. I don't want to bog people down too much with this video. It really is just as simple as knowing your pitch, knowing what your story is to convey to your legislator, asking them to please vote yes on HB 209. It's super important for us to get this through the House. I'd love to see this sit in the Senate. I would really love for us to pass policy legislatively. It gives us a lot more wiggle room. It's cheaper. It's a little easier on this. So if we can get our legislators to understand that this is where it needs to sit and not push us to a ballot initiative, we can actually move this a lot faster. That's really all I have to add to this conversation. I'm just thrilled.
Great.
Can I just say that, Bennett? I am so excited that it passed out of committee.
I know that it was Okay, I'll share a little bit here. That's just a a little inside tidbit. We had good intel that this bill was going to be killed in committee,
Mhm,
and they had numbers, and so there was a significant fear there. Like,
mhm,
admittedly, we were a bit down, but
mhm.
we kept going and we presented good testimony, and we won people over 6-3, and it passed out of committee, and
Yeah,
they're going to hear more of us.
yeah,
That's amazing.
it is. It truly is amazing. Hey, Carrie, you've been quiet. Do you want to add anything? Is she still on?
She's muted, but I asked to unmute, so.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure. And Rhonda, did you want to add anything to us? I'm so appreciative that you joined us tonight. I know you've never reached out to a legislator before. Are you going to do that this week for us?
Yes, I'd love to. And maybe one of you can help lead me in that direction for tomorrow because I actually have a business and I'm closed on Mondays. So I would do that tomorrow.
Oh,
Oh,
that's
I would
perfect.
love to. Go ahead,
So,
Ben.
yeah, you can go on to wildedge.com. And if you don't know your legislator, there is a search engine there that you can find via your address, everybody that represents you. If you know who they are, there's a roster, and you can access that and find your legislator. And each one has all their contact info. And you can email them, but they're not going to read it. It's
Not right
it's
now.
they're so inundated right now with
Mhm.
emails that if you can get a hold of them, that's the best. If you
Right.
can leave a voicemail, or if it's a text and or a cell phone and you can send a text, just something personal. But that's the way to reach out. And as I've found, nearly every one of them is a landline or a cell phone that will
Mhm.
get you either to their home or to their person, and that's the way to do it. And so what I'm going to do is, when this is finished, I will put the recording up, and I'll also put a link to the wildedge.com website so that anybody can find that link fairly easily. And that's all there
Oh,
is to it.
perfect. Rhonda and or those who are listening to the video, as you do call your legislators and you get feedback from them, what would really serve us as the lobbying team and Bennett as the lobbying team, please report into us. Tell us what your legislators are saying. Let us know if they're a hard no, a soft no, a hard yes, a soft yes, undecided. Give us feedback so that we know where we need to send our lobbying team and where we need to apply a little more pressure. And then we can keep track of our whip count. The whip count is how many legislators are in support or opposing your bill. We've had and heard rumors that we're at 28 on our whip count. We need 31 for it to pass. So that means we need everybody calling. We need everybody calling and solidifying those votes and making sure that we're still at a solid 28 and moving towards that winning 31.
And
Um,
thanking those that do support, because
absolutely.
everybody that signed on as a co-sponsor, if you get a hold of them, if they say they support it, man, thank them, because it's so important to show how grateful we all are that this is happening. It
Right.
really it means a lot to these guys who are they're out there doing this work, and they catch a lot of flack. I
They
mean,
do.
they're going to hear a lot from a lot of people, and a lot of it's going to
Mhm.
be unpleasant. And the more pleasant that you can be, the better the experience you're making for them, the better memory they're going to have of you, and the greater your impact.
And
So,
they're going to
you
want
know,
to do good by you. I mean,
yeah,
I want to do good by people who treat me good. What I mean, it's
right,
just human nature. So we do
exactly.
have to be, I mean, and I'm guilty of this, and I say this from experience. There's plenty of my legislators here in Utah that I was not a fan of. And you get more, as they say, you get more flies with honey than you do with vinegar, and it's the truth. The kinder, the more supportive, the more responsive you are, people tend to act in kind. So we want to make sure that we're developing a decent relationship with our legislators. I've met with the conservative caucus, and several of these legislators that they were not supporters of cannabis, but they're actively trying to figure out ways to make this more medical so that they can be more comfortable, because they are so supportive of medical. The state is polling
Exactly.
at 85% support for medical cannabis in Wyoming, and that's amazing. And
It is.
we want to capitalize on that. And speaking of capitalize, let me explain one finer point before we hang up and go for the evening. A lot of individuals are saying that they don't support recreational use. They only support medical use. And I was having this discussion with Bennett earlier tonight. And I had said, if people understood the endocannabinoid system, that we have this system in our body that modulates and regulates our health, they would understand that all use is medical use. Your body can't define intent, meaning when you go to smoke or vape or use an edible or anything, your body doesn't know if you're just trying to get high or if we're trying to mitigate a symptom. It doesn't know the difference. So what really needs to be happening in our community is a broad community education. Medical use is all use. We have use and abuse, and that's what happens is going on. Because Wyoming is such a small population, there is no way that a medical program would thrive in your state. It would just dry up. There's just not enough numbers of people. And that is why the majority whip went with a much broader bill to capture some of the revenue, as well as making sure our medical patients are included. So if you get a lot of pushback from legislators or others who say, well, I only support medical, maybe you can get them to think a little more about what the body does and what the endocannabinoid system does. I just wanted to make that final point because I am seeing that kind of rhetoric all over the news threads that they only support medical. And I just wanted to clarify all use is medical use at this point.
Yeah,
So,
you're absolutely right. And thank you for that. I really appreciate both the
mhm.
perspective and getting in there. And I think that's a great point to leave off. So I hope everybody watching this will follow the link or, type in, www.wyoledge.com and find your legislator, call them up and, help them to get to know you because they represent you, and ask them to help support House Bill 209. We can
Perfect.
do this. We're really close. So help us out. Thanks, guys. Hope you have a nice
Thank
day.
you.
Thank you. Thank
Good
you
night.
for inviting me.
Thank you, Rhonda.
Thank you. Good night.